What's up, guys? This is Stacy with Stacey Lewis with another dovetail video. I'm going to narrate the first 5.5 minutes of this video, and then the live audio from the recording will take over. Right now, you'll see me marking the dovetails. This is one of the critical steps in setting up dovetails, particularly half blind. You want to make sure that everything is laid out properly if you're going to get a good fit. So I already have an idea of what size I like to have pins. Uh, that's a little up to your discretion, how big you want that to be. I mean, everything is. And then I kind of use my spring dividers and go through to kind of get a look at how big the tails will be and then make a decision there. And I've made that decision. I think these are just a little bit over an inch, and they're going to have a 2 or 3/8 of an inch um, pin in between. So that looked good to me. Will be using a 1:7 ratio dovetail divider to lay these out, and that I will also use to help when I'm ready to make the cuts. So that looks good to me. One of the things I'm doing, for the video is I want to make sure, and I will do this for myself, but I mark out the waist, and then I also will try to make sure and mark the lines so that you guys can follow through a little bit better. I mean, they're easy to see on my end, but I do want to make sure that you can follow along and see what I'm trying to do. And now that I have everything marked, um, I want to clearly define these lines. I want to make it to where when I'm ready to make the cut, that I can simply sit the saw on the mark and then make my cut. So by defining these, where I'll be cutting off that piece, then it really helps to make sure I have a good joint and that I'm cutting in the right place. So if you can do that, I would encourage you to do that. So I need to do the same thing for the pins. I want to define that and make sure that um, that when I get ready to cut those, that I have a clearly defined stopping point. And so I'm going to go through and do each one of those. And then I'll flip the board over and do the same on the reverse. And that side, because this is the tail board, will act as a stop um, for the adjoining piece. So you'll see that when I'm ready to do it, it kind of helps really to measure. And once I'm ready to do the fitting, then it will let you know if everything is fitting proper, if there's anything in your way, because it should meet up um, perfectly. So if there's a gap, then maybe you have something in the way that's not allowing the two pieces to go together. Okay, so those are defined. And in the future, you can see that I took the marking gauge and I went all the way around this piece. I'm going to attempt in the future to, um, I will do that on this back side, but, for the show side, then I'm only going to do that on the pins and try not to leave that mark on the tails. I don't think a customer would notice it, but it's something that I just want to clean up, even though you probably won't see it on the final piece. And that's not just because the camera just not going to show up very well, but if I can avoid making that cut, then I want to do so. But for right now, it's just easier to go across the entire piece. Lots of people do that, but I'd like to avoid that and make my cuts in the places where they should be and avoid those where they shouldn't. So while I continue working on this, on defining this line, Now I'm on the back side. I did want to mention that my plan for the future of these dovetail videos is to do them live. If you think that's something you'd enjoy, then please comment below. I'd like to do them on Saturdays or Sunday and just do them live where you can just follow along. There may be some mistakes made because it'll be live. I may be nervous, but I wanted to do it that way and avoid having to edit videos and slow the progress, and that way I can get a video out to you at least once a week. So I'll try to do that, and I look forward to you guys joining me. So here's the live audio from this video. So first thing I want to do is remove this waste, and I'm making sure to be on the inside of my line here. And you go from the other direction. And get the two that you haven't done yet. Okay. And then again, you take your coping saw and then you can come in and just remove the waste. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and I invested a while back, even before I started doing dovetails, into this 90-degree marker here. And so I'm going to use it to get started and go down to, all right. Let's get the other side. Just place my saw first and slide over until I meet it. Okay. All right, thing to remember here is this is the show side. So this will be visible. And we've already got a good mark on our lines. You want to use a chisel that is sized to a that's smaller than your gap here, so that you know for sure you're not going to hit it. And I believe that I am good enough to go straight to the line now with the amount of waste that's been removed. I'm not going to go all the way through, and that is generally just to keep up practice of making sure that I don't go straight through the other side with the waste removal. Okay, let's take a look at that. Okay, so I need to clean it up just a little bit. So you can, if you wanted to, go a little bit shallow in the middle. You just don't want those ends to be. And what I will remind you too is that this side with this gully, I'll call it a gully, you'll probably come up with a better word, but that is the inside. This is my show face here, and so the more I can work and make sure that this is perfect, the better. I'm just making sure the chisel is flat. Getting anything that may be in these corners. Okay, see how that looks. Okay, so here's what we look like. So I think that will make for a nice fit. Let's see. That looks square. You can see that all the way across, and we have a square bottom here, and let's see, this looks square as well. Okay, so this is finished. So we can take this and use this as our inside face to, again, use to reference. So now let's mark the pins. Okay, I'm going to use this previous dovetail as a dovetail alignment board, even though it isn't. A dovetail alignment board would have a registration point here and here to make sure that you are square on both sides. But I said I would make one of those at some point, and that point isn't now. When I do, I'll be looking forward to that, being able to use that. So I'm going to put this edge slightly higher than it's supposed to be a 90-degree dovetail, just so I can use this registration point and come up to it. So I can see everything is lined up. And I want to hold that in place as best I can and take my marking knife, and go in and mark. Very important not to move and to get these lines where they're supposed to be. Okay. Like that. So I'm being very careful to make sure that I am flat against the wall of these tails, so that when I make my mark, that it is as close as possible and right along the actual edge of the tail. Okay, so I am marked. Now on these, we're going to be using those lines as a guide. So I'm going to draw them in so that you can see them on camera. If I can keep the pencil straight. By the way, these are Pentel graph gear pencils, mechanical pencils. They just feel great in the hand, easy to pop back in and use. And so this is a 0.5 and this is a 0.9. So I'll put a link in the description for these as well. When I'm doing general marking, I use the 0.9 because it's a little bit wider, and the 0.5 is used on most marking tools. If you have a woodpeckers or anything that's a ruler that has a hole that you can mark, generally it's going to be a 0.5, and that's because it's meant to be finite, small, and that will help you. So I'll link to these below, but they're just something that I keep handy and I use even outside of woodworking. These are my favorite pencils. I believe I got this from Stumpy Nubs a few years ago, and I've been using them ever since. So I'm marked now, and I want to realize my waist. And so my waist is now going to be the tails on this blind side. So I'm going to be taking out the big sections and leaving the pins that will go with this. Okay, so last thing I need to do on these, so right now I need to mark the depth of the dovetail. And so I'll do that by just taking my marking gauge on a flat surface And I'm going to just make sure I'm flat here. And now I know what the depth is. Okay, so that's my depth. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to go on this side because my pins are going to go in here. My tails are going to go in here and they're going to go down to this level. So basically I will be marking right up under here. All right, so and this really just needs to be on this one side because we will be leaving the pins or the half pins on the end and in the middle. And so they will still be there. And you can probably see this on a darker piece of wood anyway, but I'll go ahead and try to mark it so that you can see that. So now that line should coincide with the thickness. So it coincides with the, okay, so I've got my lines on both sides now, on the top and here. So if you hadn't noticed, marking makes up the majority of the work. Now in the reverse direction. And remove my waste. And I'm going to remember to saw on the side of the waste that's coming out, and I'm going to go at an angle so that I don't go all the way through. I'm going to try to allow the saw to get as close to both lines as possible. So you're generally going to have to do a good amount of chisel work. Okay, let's see how this fits. Minor adjustments. If I can put this in by hand again. All right, let me tell you right now, I like that. That is a very nice fitting set of dovetails. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and glue these up, show you how I do that, and sand. And again, these fit just amazingly. That they are not, they snap together, and I've got to hammer them apart. Okay, so what I don't want to do is use a lot of glue for this. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and set the glue up in on the tails. And I'm using Type Bond 3. You could use Type Bond 1 or 2 for this because they shouldn't be getting wet. But I just keep a lot of Type Bond 3 because it covers me just in case. So just put a little here. That's more than enough. I'm not trying to really swamp the joint like a cutting board. I just want to get enough glue for them to stay. And I'm going to use this little brush to get into the everywhere I want to get. So basically this brush is acting the same as it would if it was a craft brush. So I can get it everywhere I need it to go, including in here. In between these, in these pins. So David Charlesworth has a great video, just a small video. You can find him on YouTube. He's the inventor of the ruler trick when it comes to sharpening your blades and chisels. But when it comes to gluing, he doesn't like a lot of glue either. And so he will take a small brush, Christopher Schwartz does it as well, and put it everywhere he wants it to go without having it just all over the place, because remember, glue does swell as it dries, and this is a fine joint, so it's okay if a little bit comes out. It may even help you if you don't have a perfect dovetail, but for the most part you don't want a whole lot of squeeze out on a dovetail that was cut properly. If you have to do that, that just means that you have more work to do on your technique to get them closer. Just like you saw when I was setting up the dovetail, there was a very small gap at the top, and that indicated, because I knew my lines were correct, that I knew I needed to remove a little bit of material to get rid of that gap. Okay, so I have glue on all of the surfaces. I know that this is the inside surface because I have that ledge there. So I'm gonna try this one more time, and hopefully with the glue it still goes right in. Could be a little tighter since it's, again, the glue swells. So I have to do a little bit of work. So I'm gonna let me check for square. I think I can go a little bit more. Seems like it. Okay. Okay. Let me check for square. I can make an adjustment if I need to. Okay. All right, so I'm right on square. I'm gonna go ahead and sand these. Okay. Let's actually. I'm gonna say that looks pretty good. Give you a close-up. So again, this is my second set of half-blind dovetails. I'm gonna go ahead and mark these for the record. So let's say half-blind initials, date. And this would be, what is today? 8/19. All right. Probably about 22 days or so between the first set and the second set. So, but I'm pleased with that result. So, this is again second set of half-blind, third set of dovetails overall. That means I've got 12 more to go. I hope to progress, along the lines, covering some difficult sets of dovetails, some with some Japanese techniques, some that are used by the great Frank Strazza, houndstooth. So they'll get some pretty good size on them. And then I hope to use some techniques that I've seen in some online that have some curvature to them, so they're not just uniform, and then finish off with an ancient technique that I've seen on a house, but I've never seen replicated or duplicated by anyone today. And those I would expect, once they're complete, that you can't pull them apart, so they need to fit perfectly the first time, because you don't really get a second try at those. So I hope to get to that stage around the 14th, 15th try and see if we can complete those. Hopefully you'll be along the way with me. If you haven't already, especially since you've made it this far in the video, please like and subscribe so that we can go through this process together. I will try to keep notes on all the different things that I'm learning throughout and make that available